Now let's go behind the rock screen.
You're welcome to come on in. We'll bring out the moonshine, start telling lies and calling up the women. But no talk about racing. Come on.
Mr. Hall, thanks for hopping on.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
The first thing I got to ask you is the Ohio Hammer. You got to fill me in.
Well, that comes from Waynesfield. Jerry Keyser, he was the announcer there, and he come up with that.
Okay.
And then it just kind of
come
stuck.
Up with it and give you a reason for it, or did he just come up with it?
I think it was just on. We kind of race hard, you know what I mean, and it just kind of the hammer down. I think kind of rolled into that.
All right. Very nice. I like it. Also, Ludlow Falls. This is going to show my age a little bit, but I can remember going there as a kid for the Christmas lights. Are they ever
Absolutely
back?
I don't know what happened to that. I think it was some funding and some, they done it for a lot of years just off, donations or what have you. And it was really neat down in there, being the waterfalls and just a different kind of a setting for it, But yeah, it'd be neat if they brought it back. But yeah, that's my address where I grew up, where I was born, Ludlow Falls. Just outside of that. I went to Pleasant Hill School.
Okay. All right. So how did you get started into racing?
Oh, you got time?
All the time.
Well, we started out, my uncle bought my cousin a go-kart. They lived right across from the West Falls. So the West Falls at the time were already racing go-karts serious enough to where they were building their own or getting ready to build their own chassis. I think they might have been building their own at this time, racing their own. So, they got together and they got one of the used ones from West Falls. I don't think it was the actual West Fall chassis. But, so Jason got one from them. He started racing, and then I must have beat up my dad enough, for him to get one. So what happened was I think Jason ended up getting a Westfall, and then I got his old one. So we ran them for a couple of years. My uncle ended up getting out of it, and then my dad got out of it. So we just was done racing for a while. You know what I mean? It was just so expensive, and it wasn't in my family really. Like it wasn't a big traditional deal, nothing like that. It was more about where I grew up, honestly. If we look back at who was around me and who influenced kind of that whole deal, but so we done that a little bit, and then my brother Chad ended up talking him into getting a little mini sprint, like the 250 when they ran the 250cc mini sprints or micros, what they call them when I ran. He ended up buying one of them for me to race. So him and my other brother, both older, put together, painted it all up for me nice. We went and raced probably a year or two, maybe. And that also, funny thing about that is that was also Westfall chassis micro sprint. They actually built everything as they climbed the ladders, and they were all good cars, so we ended up going that way. And then he just kind of got out of it, lack of funding. We just are a super small, not wealthy family, you know what I mean? And just kind of finally realized that on that end of it, so kind of sold that stuff. And then I was probably 20 years old, 21, maybe somewhere right there. And we went to the local VFW every Monday night for what we called Monday night meeting. It was just drinking beer, and usually during the night we were playing liar's poker or, just good old boys, me with a bunch of, vets and old work dudes that just, Yeah. Where you hear everything about everything, There was no, you wouldn't be able to hang out with them now, I guess is what I'm saying. But Bob Sneed owned the gravel pit right there, at Fenner, and he grew up with Hewitt, they're probably one of the best friends, you know what I mean? And I got the name Sneed through my mom. My mom worked for Bob for like 25 years as a secretary for the gravel pit. And so I'd go up there, and he was one that was up there with us drinking and bullshitting. And I think he just got tired of me saying I want to race. So we was on the gas one night pretty good. And he goes, listen, if you get a car, I will power it. I'm like, oh, shit, like, this is getting serious now. You know what I mean? I'm like, I just got to come up with a car. Well, I didn't have no idea how expensive any of that stuff was, but yeah. I got my little tax return back, and I bought me a bent-up Maxim with bent body paint. I mean, it was honestly probably not a good starter piece, right? So I put it in my truck, and I drive it up to the VFW, you know, and I know when I turned the corner and he seen that thing in the back of my truck, he was like, "Oh shit!" You know, like this ain't good. But so he kind of realized, you know, what I mean, he'd said it and I wanted it, and so you know, he's a man of his word. So he goes, "Well, listen, the first thing we'll do is we gotta get this frame straight." And he goes, "You can't start, you know, I mean, you don't want to start anything with a bent up frame." So he goes, "We'll take it up to Johnny Beaver and have him and Tony look at it, go through it, whatever, and then we'll get it back and we'll start piecing it together." You know, I'm like, that's amazing to me. You know, I mean, I don't have the money to do none of this, even to get it fixed. You know, it took everything I had to get it. And so it took like 3 months, you know, and I mean, I am biting at the chomp about, you know, just getting this car back, just seeing it straight even, you know what I mean? And I didn't know what it entailed really to fix a sprint car, you know what I mean? 3 months later, I was thinking like, daggone, you know what I mean? I could about bend some tubing or cut some tubing or, you know what I mean, whatever we had to do to get this thing ready, you know? Yeah. So one day he finally said, "Hey, he goes, you and Kenya, my girlfriend at the time and still is now, why don't you guys run up there and grab that frame? It's done." So I'm like, "Oh, yeah, sweet." Yeah, he goes, "Well, just take the Denali and the little trailer, the little flat trailer." He goes, "That way you ain't got to mess with putting in your truck and all that." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine, whatever." That thing, it had a Maxim sticker on the front tubes. It was one of the older stickers that had like the light blue in the middle of the letters, and it was just a real distinct Maxim sticker, you know. So we get up there, and this place is big, and there's like sprint car frames all over the place. You know what I mean? That's what they do, build, fix. You know what I mean? So there is, you know, I want to say there's like 50 cars standing up. There's some together. At that point, you know what I mean? They were still racing out there. So I'm looking, and I can't find, I'm looking at all these bare frames, and I can't find that sticker on any of them. So I'm almost like frustrated because I'm like, man, did they take my car and then I end up with something, you know what I mean? Because I didn't know any of the game or anything then, you know, I knew it had that sticker on it and that was it. So I look around, you know, and then I see that sticker on a complete race car. So Sneed had them guys put together and build the whole thing. I mean, this thing's got a motor in it, 4 wheels and tires. They even have this thing that goes in the rear end that starts it for me. So from going up, you know what I mean, to get that chassis, and then for there to be a sprint car there for me to race, you know what I mean, like ready enough, able to race, it was a really crazy emotional moment for me, to say the least.
Yeah,
so that's how I got into the sprint cars. You know, that was just Bob Sneeder. He done that all on, you know, we didn't have no big sponsors. We didn't have no big, you know what I mean? He done that, you know, just out of his own deal. And it ended up just being an amazing adventure, good times, fun, family. I mean, it was a great deal.
So what kind of car was that?
We actually done a little bit of everything. That was a 410 non-wing sprint car that we started with. We started and we ran down at the old Lawrenceburg, which I would take any day compared to the new Lawrenceburg. I love the facility. I love the people. I love everything. I just don't love the track. And I think that's just because I got to race on the original Lawrenceburg. And so I cut my teeth, and, you know what I mean? It was just a fun, racy track, you know what I mean? And we went down there for a couple of years. And with Sneed being such good friends with Hewitt, and it was after Hewitt got hurt a second time, he ended up actually going with us for like the first couple of years I started. So that really, believe me, that changed things with him there, to say the least. But mostly all in the good sense, you know.
Right. Yeah.
He will speed your curve up, though. I will tell you that.
It's funny though when you mentioned that. I can flash back to, oh gosh, I want to say, what do you remember what year it was that he had the eye patch?
Oh no, I don't know what year that was.
I want to say it was like 93, maybe.
But I got some good pictures of that, him and Don.
I'm not 100% sure, but so he raced at Lima Land, and I can remember as a young kid meeting him, and he had the eye patch on, and I can't remember, what was the old newspapers you could get, the dirt racing newspapers?
Speed Sport?
Speed Sport. I had a Speed Sport, and I had him sign it, and it at some point, I kept it forever, but at some point, somehow it got wet, and the only thing that didn't get wet was Jack Hewitt's autograph, so I tore it.
That's pretty cool.
Kept it, and I still have it.
That's pretty neat.
But that night at Lima Land, he went into 1 and 2 and went out of the park. He flipped and tore the car up and went out of the park that night. I vividly remember that night.
He's had a couple of them nights in his career.
Yeah. So
had a couple good ones too. That's for sure.
Oh, no doubt. So you jumped in the 410, and you've been in various forms of sprint cars. Is there any kind of sprint car that you haven't ran?
Well, see, we kind of ran the non-wing thing at Lawrenceburg with Sneeder when we started, you know, and that was a haul down there for us, you know, every Saturday night. They started opening Waynesfield up and having some non-wing stuff there. Well, that's hard to, I mean, it wasn't paying no big money, but I think that's what made it so much fun. It was only 35 minutes up the road from us, you know, and Sneed's a businessman, and it only made sense, you know what I mean? You can probably go have just as much fun, and ended up being just as good as racing as any, you know what I mean? So we started going there on Saturdays, and then we was like, well, heck, they run Fridays at Lima, 360, you know, maybe we get one of them. So we was doing that for a while, and then we was we didn't have 360, we was running both with. We would just put a different offset right front on it for non-wing and scoot the axle over and change the bars and all that good stuff. But you could do it. You could run the same one, you know what I mean? Because it was enough at Waynesfield, you know, you could still win with. I mean, Swanson, a lot of people's proven that. Right. So, yeah, we ran that, and then here with Heitmeyer, the midget, I ran a lot for after me and Sneed separated, because he just was trying to get me to where I could get a ride and go do it, you know, off his bill, you know, just trying to get me out there. And then that kind of happened a little bit, and then it went bad with me and Ray Marshall, which not really bad, it just didn't work out, you know what I mean? And then I ended up in car. So I was with Sneed for like 10, 11 years, somewhere in there. And then once I got with Nelson, I was with him for like another 9 or 10, you know what I mean? So I haven't really got out there much because, well, I mean, me and Sneed and Team Fenner, we got out there and done stuff, but we never was really like a serious points racer. We never went and chased no big series. I mean, we ran the NRA. We ran second points in that, I think, one year. But we ran some all-stars, some stuff like that, but never enough really to get a super big handle on it. But we kind of went for racing and then a party, to be honest, because it's just what we done, and it worked, and it was fun. And there's times I'll you know what I mean, I'm glad I have. I'll never forget.
Sure. That kind of brings me to something I was going to touch on, and I think we'll kind of jump into here. So far here in 2025, you were a heat race winner and finished 4th at the Mike Striker Memorial at Limeland. You're a heat race winner and a feature winner at Eldora on May 17th with the USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets. Got to be happy with the start to the season. And what is it about running with the USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets in particular that's so much fun?
To be honest, it's just got to feel to me like the old Waynesfield did for like 5 years there. There was 5 years that Waynesfield every Saturday night was 25 to 30 cars, but you knew about all of them. Everybody would loan you something. You were drinking beers after the races, no matter who won or who lost. You know what I mean? It just got that vibe for me. You know what I mean? It's just everybody kind of knows everybody. And it's a good series. I mean, the way they got the motors capped right now, if they leave that and don't let no big money get into it and stuff like that, you know what I mean? It'll stay a great series as long as they just got to keep down on the titanium and keep down on the cost. I mean, the low cost is what's going to make the series grow, because non-wing sprint cars and wing sprint cars, even 305s and 360s are, out of hand.
Yeah, that's a conversation that we've had with a lot of people. I talk to late model guys or modified guys, and we know kind of how the expenses have gone there. And it's something recently we've been talking about as far as sprint cars and how shock game has really kind of stepped up in the sprint car world, and how that obviously leads to additional cost. Not to forget about the motors that cost tens of thousands of dollars or things like that. So I completely agree with you. The way what they're doing with that series is great, and lets folks get out and race that want to race.
And that's what it is, you know what I mean? I think Eldora, my laps helped a lot there, you know what I mean? But usually Eldora, that's kind of your only place that don't get super racy, I guess. You know what I mean? Just because of the size of it and the restrictions on the motor. But, like, you look at all these little short tracks that we go to, and they are a blast. I mean, when you got enough power that you got to run both your feet and know what you're doing, keep the car straight. You know what I mean? There's plenty that you get to use to race with. You know what I mean? It ain't just like a go-kart where you would flat-foot it and, just hope that you don't scrub any speed or hope that you don't, mess up because you're never going to get it back. Like, these are – you can still really race with them.
Yeah, I know you talk about Eldora and the midgets being there, but I got to tell you, and I've had this conversation with guys before, is that especially 4 Crown weekend, I love watching the midgets there. And there's times that you guys would be running 4 and 5 wide there at Eldora. I think it's nuts, and I think it's awesome to watch those cars at Eldora.
I think the USAC midgets can put on sometimes a little bit better of a show, just because they got the motor that you can get up there and really get in the stuff, you know what I mean? And then also pull it on the bottom, where the D2s are just a little bit more, almost got to pick your poison, to where you're going to run. But yeah, absolutely. They put on the great slide jobs, great races, especially the slicker as it gets. And I think that's with all of it, really. You're going to get a little bit closer and a little bit better racing as it slicks off and gets a little attitude.
So do you have, I guess after that, my question would be, do you have a favorite track to race at, and why is that?
Knoxville is a really neat place to race at. And I don't know if I just fell in love with I know Eldora is just as historic and just as badass, but just to have the Hall of Fame over there, and when you grow up by Eldora, it just, I don't know. It's neat to see somebody else's Eldora, I guess. You know what I mean? Because I feel like it's, as far as the dirt racing goes, it's right there with, the top, one of the couple top twos out there as far as the historic aspect and the big shows and the what have you. So I really like racing Knoxville. I don't get to run it much, but that's a neat one. Love Waynesfield. Love Eldora. I don't know. I like them all because they got different stuff. I like Fremont. I really like Attica. I like Fremont. It gets kind of, I don't know, it gets different characteristics. You know what I mean? Like you can hammer down sometimes, but you got to have patience sometimes. Or, you know what I mean? You got to hit your marks. And, you know what I mean? It takes I feel like that place takes a driver that can do a little bit of everything.
Is there a track that you haven't ran at that you hope to run at before you finally hang it up?
I don't know that. We've got to run like some of the really cool ones. I mean, Eldora, Knoxville, we got to go down to the ditch. We went to the Volusia, East Bay before it. Okay. Gas City. We got to run a lot. We just ain't ran a lot of times.
Right.
That makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. Definitely. That's awesome that you've had that ability to get out and race at a bunch of different tracks. Not a whole lot of folks can say stuff like that. Is there a race that stands out to you, either one that you were the winner of the race or one that didn't go as you thought it would?
I got both. I got the one that hurts me is we was down with Bouncer. Don Ryder is his name, in Tennessee. He owned a 360 car, and we actually went down to the ditch, and I'd never been there before, and it was what is that, USCS race. Had like Mark Smith and the Crawleys and that group, and I'd never been down there, and we went down there and ran really good in the heat. I think we might have won the heat, and we started like 6 in the feature. And right out of the gate, we took the lead, and I think I led like 23 out of 25 or something. But I ended up getting there was this lap car that had a flat left rear. And it was so flat, like the wheel was into the mud, like I could see it making little squigglies of dirt and shit. You know what I mean? I'm like, he didn't know where it was going because it wasn't handling. And I didn't know where he was going, so I didn't know where I was going. So I finally got to him. I went on the bottom of him. And I went just a little bit too low and got in this mud, and I barely nicked the Ute tire with my left front, and it bent. Well, I went around the corner, and once we got straight again, I couldn't steer mine, so I ran to the wall and then hit Mark Smith, and it turned into a big old melee. But that one, you know what I mean? I think we lapped up to like 6th before that happened. You know what I mean? We was just on I don't know, it's just neat when you've never been to one of them places like that and you just show up with, you know what I mean, we didn't have nothing big. We just had a small trailer, had to put the wing on, outside the trailer and stuff. Nobody knew who he was, but then with some of the fun ones when, when you go down there and not even really know who you are. And then the one I won, I thought was pretty, I mean, all of them mean a lot. We won a lot with Nelson and them guys, but to win Eldora non-wing with Sneeder, was pretty cool. That was one that meant a lot and was pretty cool to do. You know what I mean? Your name's in a book there that's not that big.
That's a big accomplishment, no doubt there.
Same with Whitemeyer, you know what I mean? That team and him and Fogg and Kyle and Drew and all them guys, they give me a beautiful piece, to drive, in the D2 Midget, and at the one we take to the Chili Bowl as well. But, so you hear them guys say, like, it's teamwork and, you know what I mean? It makes my job a lot easier and all that. It really does. You know what I mean? All them drivers ain't saying that for no reason, and Fogg was around Stryker forever, and, the cars that the Hawks, I feel, are just as good now as they've ever been. You know what I mean?
So you talked about, different sprint cars that you've ran. We talked about different tracks. Is there a car that you haven't raced that you'd like to try?
Two things. I would love to drive Crown, and I would love to try anything on asphalt.
You could do both of those.
I've never had a shot. Not saying it would be a very pretty sight, but it's just something I've always felt like I can get a handle on. A lot of dirt guys seem like they can, you know what I mean, have that feel. So I always thought that'd be neat. And then Silver Crown cars, I've just always respected, and they've always seemed to me like the upper class of the USAC world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so you hear that, folks. If you got an open Silver Crown ride heck, you could run Silver Crown on pavement, too. You could knock out 2 birds with 1 stone.
There you go. I tell you what I'd like to have is Gussie, which is that car that you had that he won all them Silver Crown races with.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you're not the only one who'd like to have that.
Right. You can still sell them today.
Right. You mentioned Chili Bowl, so is that something that, and obviously that'll be into 2026, but is that something that you have on your schedule?
I hope so. That actually started for me anyhow when because Drew used to drive this car, which is this year he's driving like a teammate car. We're at 2 cars, and he's running the other one. Well, he broke his foot one year, and right before the Chili Bowl. And that was like, I've been wanting to go to Chili Bowl for like 20-some years. I went with Hewitt when we took the 2-seater to give rides and stuff, but I've never got to run it. And I've always been at West Falls, when they're gearing up to go, because they went for like the last, since it started. So that was pretty neat to even get a shot to do that. So this will be, I believe, my 3rd or 4th coming up.
Okay, very good. I actually, a coworker of mine has a cousin that races out in Arizona, and he went out there, and he used to run some cars, but he hasn't raced in a while. And he went out there and ran his cousin's micro, and then come back home, and then he sent me a picture. This has probably been a month ago now. He sent me a Facebook picture of a frame of a midget and said, I might be going to the Chili Bowl in 2026. And so, needless to say, that car is now sitting in his garage, and the plan is for him to run there. So
it's a drug.
Yeah.
Racing is, you can.
I would imagine if you've raced, it's something that just doesn't go away. I'm just a fan. I've never raced. I just enjoy going on the track. But I would imagine that racing is something that it's hard to get out of your system, even when you get.
It's another level. I think Jason Meyer said it best at like the high limit banquet. That even him deep in business and business deals and stuff. You don't get the up and downs like in racing. You know what I mean? Not such a spike and then the next spike down and that spike up. You know what I mean? Like he said, business you can get a slow up and slow down, but like racing just, and it ain't cut out for everybody. You know what I mean? There's some that, a couple too many of them lows and they're out. I've seen a lot of them come and a lot of them go, and it's not easy to stay in the game any which way, shape, or form. For a super amount of time. And the ones that you hear of that's been around for a while are more than likely the real deal or super rich, I guess, one of the two.
Yeah, you got to have the backing or you got to have the money yourself. But there ain't no way around that, especially like we were talking nowadays. It's just getting more and more expensive. So you talk
absolutely. I don't know how else the tires are. Whoops, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. that's something good to talk about is tires. Like it's
Well, I'm a big on this. I hate tire dope. I think it should be outlawed in every racing class. It don't do a damn thing for the racing. All it does is make more crew have more shit to do. It's bad for you. It's not good to be on you. You know what I mean? There's just not any kind of win in it. I mean, if I put on races, I'd be sniffing in tires and, you know what I mean? Whatever it takes to just, where people don't even want to think about doing it, or they're, you know what I mean?
Well, and talking, I guess here we'll talk sprint cars in particular. Is you're talking about tires. Not too long ago, there was somebody talking about wings and how people might be messing with the wings. Traction control has been a topic. There's a lot of things going on, and it's an interesting conversation, because if you haven't heard Driver's Project, I suggest check it out. Episode 50 with Donnie Schatz. Very good episode. Donnie lets you know some of the stuff he's not a fan of, and he talks a lot about traction control. And it, to my ear, I don't know that I would catch it, but yourself, you've been racing a long time. Donnie says he can hear it, and it sounds.
I'm not a fan at all, and you can fix it. You can fix it real easy by just putting Vertex mags back in them. I mean, I don't think you can play any of that trick shit if you have an old, an old Vertex. Or that's going to be the problem is when the computers start winning.
Yeah.
And that's the traction control, and that's the, you know what I mean? I don't mind the wing thing because, in my mind, I guess that's more of the good old boys just trying to get faster. I guess more than, I don't know, like I said, I guess I'm just so against technology that I hate that to even get into the racing world, you know what I mean? Because once you get in it, you can see, and I ain't saying names, but Keith Coons and all of them bring their laptops out and hook up and, you know what I mean? That, can you imagine, like, Don Hewitt seeing somebody hook a computer to a midget? You know what I mean? It's just crazy. Like, we've just gone too far with it.
It's, I don't know. When you talk about technology in racing, I think the first thing that pops into my head is the steering wheel in IndyCar.
Out of this world, ain't they?
It's just, there's so many buttons and knobs, and I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely a dirt track racing guy at heart. I'm an oval guy at heart, so they've really kind of gotten away from. They had gotten away from doing ovals that much, and we're doing more road course and street course stuff. And I don't watch it as much as I used to. I used to, like, when they ran Texas at night, I loved that race. But, it's kind of one of those things, like, it's almost a double-edged sword, right? I agree with you. Like, technology has a point to where it needs to be kind of cut off, but at the same time, like, they always say you got to change with the times. Like, if you don't change with the times and everybody else is changing with the times, and you're going to get left behind. It's a weird spot to be in. I side with you.
I agree. It's kind of hard, but if we don't stop it now, it's going to get so far past that I feel. I mean, it's a pretty simple game right now. If you look at sprint car, it's been the same for like the last 30 years. 4 torsion bars, you know what I mean? Like, it's been fairly the same concept, same 400 small block for the most part, shape of the motor.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, there's, the dish wings have gone away, right? And now they're talking about 1,000 horsepower in the motors, and like we were talking about earlier, shocks have become a big thing.
You ready for this? This is a new thing. Everybody wants to buy like $100,000 motor and then detune them.
Yeah.
I've seen more people buy motors and pay big money, and then they're like in a scramble. Where's my reducers, and where's my other nozzles, and where's my retard box and where's my, you know what I mean? Like, we got to slow this thing down. I'm like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
But I guess I grew up in a little bit different era. I mean, I know you needed it qualifying, but it's like, wow. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's, you know, I think there's certainly some of the stuff that's been talking about, you know, I don't know. I'm not on the inside. I think sometimes there are some folks that like to speculate beyond what is reasonably going on.
Right.
What's going on, sure. I think some people like to talk about stuff that I think is just out of this world, but there's definitely things that need addressed, like you were talking about, and I'm certainly
Tire price.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like $300 plus for a right rear sprint car tire.
Well, you know,
that you're going to burn up that night. So, like, the days of, like, the dude that's putting the show on, making $1,000 a week and having to buy a $350 tire.
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, if you add all that stuff up, you have definitely taken the common man or the common Joe that used to be able to afford a sprint car, you know, out of the picture.
Well, and it's all, you know, I think it all has a trickle-down effect as far as, you know, we talk about money, and I know it seems like I see a lot of haulers pulling in. They're like, holy smokes, there's a lot of money in that. And, you know, you think about some of these tracks that luckily we're getting some tracks back. It seems more so now than we had been, but the track's got to be able to keep up too. You know, everybody's not an Eldora or a Knoxville.
Correct.
Smaller tracks they have to be able to keep up. And, you know, they got to have people that can come and help and work the track. And if you get to a track that's trying to keep the gates open and it just so happens they have a bad night and working the track, well, then you're racing and you're burning up $1,000 in tires. You know, so it affects everybody.
It's hard because, you know, I don't really know how they used to do it back in the day and make money, other than there just used to be a lot more fans. I mean, yeah, you're getting your fans for your big high limit races and your, you know what I mean, stuff like that. But as far as what I've seen, local racing and stuff, there really isn't anymore as far as Ohio right here, like local, where it's like every Saturday and points funds. And, you know, I don't think Lawrenceburg's doing it anymore. I think they used to have a full count of their own sprint cars. You know, that's went to almost, I don't even know. Waynesfield, they had a full count of sprint cars. You know, that's kind of gone. The Boss deal, you know, some of them jumped on that deal and went that route. But I don't know. It's just hard, I feel. Hard to keep a track open if you can't get nobody in the stands, but you can't rely on that to pay your purse. You know, so it's just, I think it's going to come down to, just my opinion, Flow getting more involved in local racing, even at a local level, because at some time, I mean, you're going to have to feed this monster. You know what I mean? Once they get done watching High Limit and whatever else on Flow, like, you know, some of that local racing is going to come good, you know, for people that want to watch.
And I think when they first started that, I think that was their intention, and it seemed to me like that they've kind of gotten away from that now. You know, I don't know. I mean, obviously I don't know what the money was. I would be speculating if I said I did. Obviously, they were paying out some money, right? But I don't feel like it was much. But apparently, they felt like it was enough that, you know, some of the tracks that we had seen getting coverage are now not getting coverage. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of more options for kids, teenagers, you know, and maybe that's.
Well, that's what I mean. Where are you going to get? You know, where are you going to get the next batch of sprint car drivers for High Limit or for Outlaws or for USAC? You know what I mean? That's why another reason I think this D2 thing is great, because I feel like it's going to be the only option that a big group of people are going to be able to race anything competitively.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I know I talked to the owner of the Dirt Track Truck Series, Andy King, and that's kind of the same mindset that he had behind his truck series is similar to what the USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets is doing, and it's good to be able to give people an option because like I've spoken, like you know well, is like what used to be modified is now a late model, and what used to be what used to be a modified is now a stock car.
Right.
Because the stock cars are essentially modifieds with a different front end.
Correct.
Compared to when I was growing up, they were they were bombers, and you were just.
And they didn't do any of this almost flipping over or shit.
Well, they did. It was only because coming into the corner just drilled them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But the stock cars have become modifieds, and it's all kind of it comes again back to money where it's just expensive. Kind of back up real quick on the tire topic. Hoosiers got a stranglehold on racing, dirt racing in general.
Yeah, I don't even know how that's legal, is it?
I mean, I thought there was something called a monopoly, but I know American Racers involved in dirt racing, and I know sometimes you'll have tracks that'll say you can run both. So,
well, I feel like what they do is they go in there and they give you some points money to the track or to the series, and then it's like, well, you got to run Hoosiers. You know what I mean? So it's almost they kind of got you a double-edged sword deal again. You know what I mean? Promoters just trying to probably make ends meet, or even try to make a little. And
yeah,
but yeah, I don't know how the tire game has got that expensive. I feel like nowadays you can get away using different materials for stuff, and I gotta think that would be cheaper. But maybe it's going the other way, or maybe I don't know why we just can't open the gates or.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation to have. You talked about the tracks and what Dwayne's doing with the AFCS up there at Attica and Fremont, the 410 and 305 series. It's not weekly, but almost weekly. Sharon brought back weekly 410 racing. Lima is different because the school owns them, and in my opinion, without knowing this factually, the school owns them, and so if they don't ever open the gates, it doesn't matter to them.
Right, they ain't trying to make money.
I will say, and I said this Monday, and I'll say this again until I'm proven otherwise, that this season that they've been doing, you race there. This season I've been impressed with what I've seen. There was a couple times that I thought for sure they were going to cancel the way the weather was leading up to the race day, and they raced. I thought the track was pretty good when I was there. I know I talked to, it was Dwayne with AFCS. He was at Lima this past Friday, and he said the track was in good shape, and I'd seen, I think the first race of the season, it looked like it was really solid, and I plan on going there again this weekend.
Yeah, I felt like it was good for the striker. I felt like that was a good track for us.
Yeah. So kind of getting sidetracked, but this year it seems like things have changed a little bit there. But yeah,
they went through a bad stint there.
Yeah,
they just had some bad. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's just. I heard, how you hear everything, and I raced on it, and I heard that they just put some not so up to par dirt on it, and it raced like that. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's what happened or what, but it was the dust that it produced, and the kind of almost like how it kind of chunk rolled up. That kind of. I've been around dirt on and off the races a lot in my life, clay and dirt, topsoil, yada, yada, and that's half the battle, if not 3/4 of the battle, is what you got on that surface. And I feel like Knoxville is the only one that I know of that really, truly is, and this is just by my experience being there, has got their shit together on what kind of dirt they got, how much it'll take, what it needs to, how long it's going to be before it widens, and they got a good handle on it, but I feel like that it's kind of like blue clay out there. So that stuff is, there ain't no rocks in it hardly. You know what I mean? So you got something more consistent to work with. So, as long as they've been doing it, they've now, you got a pretty good handle on it. But if you get some of that stuff that ain't got as much clay in it, You're just not. It's going to be different next time than it is this time, unfortunately.
Sure. Yeah, that's kind of the dirt we get handed around here. I mean, you know.
Gotta get deep for that blue clay.
I'm sure they outsource it, but you know, I've been in Ohio most of my life, and that is spot on about how, you know, my mom's family are all farmers, and I can tell you firsthand that you can bet the bank you're going to find rocks in that dirt.
Right. And that just, you know what I mean, that just tells me the more rockier they are, you know, the further away they are from true clay.
Yeah.
Because I dug true clay in that gravel pit we was talking about earlier. We call it blue hard pan. And listen, you about can't dig it up. It's just, I don't know, it's just so consistent, like actual clay that you work with or whatever. You know, it's just far from what we've got around here.
Rest of the 2025 season, what's your schedule look like? Is it mostly the USAC Midwest Thunder Midget schedule?
Yeah, I think we're going to do the full deal with them guys, the full points deal, and then we'll just fill in some with Kyle Simon and Jim Simon, Steve Simon. We run their sprint car a little bit non-wing, and actually Westfall just won in it last weekend. And
Kokomo?
We're doing a little bit of bounces and a little bit of Simon non-wing, a little bit of Nelson still wants to run a few. So, yeah, we got some racing ahead of us.
We're just getting started. It's, you know, it's funny. The spring has kind of flown through, but really the racing has kind of just started. So,
yeah, it seemed like the weather has slowed us down here for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, Luke, before we wrap this up, I've got 10 questions for you.
Oh.
So as quickly as you can answer them, give me your answers. Question number 1, celebrity crush growing up.
I can't think of her name. Oh shit. I can't think. She was in The Heat. Married Jesse James.
I haven't seen that movie in forever.
Sharon Bullock.
Oh, Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock. Yep.
Yeah,
that was
in, what was the
2 weeks notice, maybe?
I was thinking, what was the bus? Speed. Keanu Reeves. Bus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What about a favorite cartoon?
I was a Woody Woodpecker guy.
All right. Okay. Favorite pro wrestler?
Probably The Rock or Steve Austin.
Okay. I like it. Do you have a favorite song or a favorite group?
I've been a Hank Jr. fan for a long time, so I'd probably have to go old school on that one.
I like it. What about a favorite movie?
Probably American Graffiti.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm an old soul, man.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Favorite vacation spot?
I ain't been on very many.
I know most of you guys, their vacations going to the racetrack.
Right, that's pretty much what ours is. We like the water. Anything close to the water.
All right. Something very few people know about you.
I don't know, I'm pretty open book. Man, I don't know that one. I'm into hot rods and stuff.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Is there one in particular?
I've always liked the 62 to the 65 Novas, little Chevy 2s.
This probably answers what my next question was going to be, was if you pull in the driveway and you hit the garage door opener, what's sitting in the garage? So is it going to be the Nova?
I mean, if I could have any, it would probably be a 55 Chevy.
Okay.
But I like the Novas. That was my first car, so I like the Novas. But But the 55 Chevy done right is just a hard hot rod to beat.
Very cool. I agree. Do you have a go-to meal?
Go-to meal? Man, like it's hard to beat a steak and baked potato and broccoli. But that one don't happen very often.
Yeah. All right, and the last one, funniest story you got either from the track or the shop or on the way to one of them.
Funniest story? I should have thought about something.
One you can share.
The only one I have is my kind of embarrassing one when we was first starting out. Though we got all the way to Gas City, and it's actually Hewitt was going to run the second car that we had, Jack, just to get back in one and just to kind of play / see what he could do. We got all the way over to Gas City and drivers meeting and everything, getting ready to go down, and I realized I forgot my helmet bag. So I had, Hewitt gave me some pretty rough shit all until we had Kenny bring it on the way over. So we got it late, but that was a pretty bad and embarrassing kind of a joking one.
Before we finally wrap it up, where can everybody follow you on social media? Any merchandise available and sponsors that you would like to thank?
I don't do any of that stuff. My daughter just started a TikTok for the USAC D2 stuff. Kyle Heitmeyer and Heitmeyer Concrete. Ironhead Tires, Hirsch Pharmacy. That's some of the people that help Kyle and help on that team, and I know I appreciate it. And I know he does. Fogville's amazing cars. The Hawk chassis are just as wide as it ever was. And just balance at the 360 stuff and Nelson's for all the years they've helped and all the Team Fender, everything they've done. That's about where I'm at with it.
Well, Luke Hall, driver of the number 74 Midget out of Ludlow Falls, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Guys, this is Josh with the Dirt Court Jesters Podcast, and we hope to see you at the track.